Colonel Mark C. Adger with Fulton County Sheriff's Office. Colonel Adger, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be with you.
Let's back up for a moment. How many jails are we talking about within Fulton County here?
Well, we operate 4 facilities. At this time, only 2 are open for operation.
And how many inmates would you estimate are at those 2 facilities?
This morning's count was 2535. We have 2,200 inmates here at the main facility and 208 at Union City.
Have you all taken precautions here in terms of safety and as best as possible in terms of social distancing with the inmates? What are the measures you all have implemented?
Well, in particular with the inmates, since they are confined in cells, as described, we have taken the precaution of separating inmates that might or suspect of being coronavirus positive. We test them to determine what their status is, and then once we have ascertained that status, we house them appropriately. Fortunately for us at Union City, we have not had any positive cases in that facility, and therefore we have not had to quarantine or isolate anyone there. Our precautions for Union City include, though, the cleaning process that we use. We're disinfecting that facility on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, we had hired a private contractor to come in and disinfect that facility.
When was that contractor hired?
That contractor was hired. It was authorized on last Wednesday, and they began work this past Thursday, and they completed their process of disinfecting that facility on this past Monday, at which time we also authorized them to move and begin work here at the main facility.
And you all have medical staff or medical personnel that are housed, or at least work at these 2 facilities, Colonel?
We do.
Are they able to pre-screen anyone for symptoms?
Yes. Upon entry to the jail system, before they even enter the building, we begin the screening process, which includes taking their temperature with a remote touchless infrared thermometer before they even enter the building. We then ask them the screening questions that are recommended by the CDC. If they answer negative to those screening questions and do not have a temperature of 100.4, they may then enter the facility, at which time they are screened again the very same way by medical professionals that are stationed in the jail. The temperature is taken again by an oral device. That temperature is then verified, and then the questions are asked again. And if the answer to those questions are negative, then they proceed through the booking process where they are screened a 3rd time, and their vitals are checked for a 3rd time. Once that has occurred, once they get through the booking process, we then segregate these newly arriving inmates for up to 14 days before they enter general population to ensure that no one's coming in off the street and introducing the COVID-19 virus into this facility. And I believe so far that has been extremely successful.
Now, we know there have been some confirmed cases at the Atlanta jail, but here in Union City, to your knowledge, again, there are no confirmed cases to your knowledge.
That is correct.
So, Colonel, what do you make of what one of the inmates told our reporter, Lisa Hagan, about us? Go ahead.
No, I understand their frustration of being trapped in a system that is somewhat frozen, but let me assure your listeners that the facility is clean. I was there myself when the contractor was doing their work to observe how they did it, the condition of the units while they were doing it, the conditions that were described. I did not see any of that, and I walked every pod in that facility. I think sometimes people get frustrated and desperate, and they describe things that just doesn't exist. My staff, my command staff there is on a regular basis. My major in charge of jail operations was there and ate dinner with the inmates, so there's no issue with the food. I eat the food. I make it a practice to eat the food both here at the main jail and at the annexes, so that I can say, if I'm asked, about the food, that it is edible. Now, it may not be your mama's home cooking, but it's going to sustain you while you're here in this jail, and it's going to keep you healthy. So we take those concerns extremely serious. Where there are deficiencies, like when a toilet is backed up, we get the maintenance people in as quick as we can to get that fixed, and we go from there.
Colonel, do you have masks for your staff?
I do. Every staff member has been issued an N95 mask. Every inmate that is in quarantine or who has tested positive for the coronavirus is given a surgical mask. And here just a day or so ago, we received a partial order of face shields. And we're expecting to get additional face shields so that every staff member here will have a face shield and an N95 mask. We've also increased the number of infrared touchless thermometers that we can use. And we're looking at implementing additional technology to scan body temperature as people enter the facility without having to do it one at a time. So we're looking at ways all the time to increase our efficiency in reducing the possibility of the introduction of the coronavirus in the Fulton County Jail. And our efforts have paid off. With the positive tests that we did have, we have 12 active cases now. None of them have fevers. They're all improving, and there has been no hospitalization whatsoever.
Colonel, the suggestion that perhaps if it was possible for all the inmates to have masks, you heard our reporter Lisa Hagan, as described by inmate to her, that some of the inmates were trying to make masks out of their own personal clothing. We all know about the shortage of these masks. Is there a conversation about providing masks, since you could house up to 7 or 8 within a cell, within a unit?
Yeah, there's been conversation, and to talk about the 8-bunk cells, there are very few of those. I think in the Union City facility, there's only 4 to 6 8-bunk cells. So it's not like all the inmates are housed in large capacity cells. As far as the face masks are concerned, you're right. There is a shortage of those. They're very hard to come by. We got a shipment in from GEMA last week, and there was only 3 boxes. 3 boxes of 50 masks piece. So it's very difficult to come by even the surgical mask. We were very fortunate to get a large order of the N95s for staff. So we have to husband those resources very closely, and we have to preserve those resources for those that are either symptomatic or suspected COVID cases, and for staff. So that's our priority.
Colonel, who makes the final decision, or what's the process for making the decision if an inmate or if someone can be released due to the fact that it might be a low-level offense that they're being detained for? What's the process involved?
Well, a lot of that depends on the status of the case. In pretrial detainees, which we house the majority of here, they have active cases, and the judges who preside over those cases have to make those decisions in conjunction with the prosecutor of that case and the defense attorney. So those 3 parties have to agree to either a bond for that individual that is acceptable to both the state and the defense, and the court has to agree with that recommendation.
Is all that on hold now due to the pandemic?
Oh, not at all. As a matter of fact, yesterday I received a list of about 40 inmates that have been cleared to be released on signature bond alone. No other condition other than a signature bond. So we're working on releasing those individuals. We released about 60 people who were serving sentences here at the jail, who have served a majority of that sentence and are close to being released anyway. We've granted them early release, and the DA's office has a list of about another 100 individuals that they're considering releasing on ankle monitoring. So the process is still moving. It's cumbersome now because we're having to do it via video, but it's still moving, and there's still progress.
And how many inmates or detainees do you have at the Union City Jail?
207 as of this morning.
And is it possible then, because you mentioned that you have more than one inmate in a cell, in a unit, so is it possible that you could spread them out so there's not that many in a particular cell?
And where we can do that, we have. We've used our isolation cells in the intake unit at Union City. Depending on the classification level of certain inmates, we've been able to spread them out. But one of the things that we have to be cognizant of all the time is the safety and security of those that we incarcerate, making sure that no one is exposed to anyone else that might be dangerous to them, doing violence to them. So we still have to run a safe and secure environment, which we do, and we attempt to maintain a medical safety as well for each inmate that's in our custody. And I think right now we've hit our stride in doing that. We have not had any new COVID-19 cases, and the ones that we have are well managed and are reducing in number. So I think we just need to hold the reins where we have them right now.
Colonel, as we wrap up, what is the biggest challenge for you and your entire staff then during all of this?
That's a great question. I think, my staff has been exceptional through all of this, and not only just my staff, but the NASCARE folk that are working here and providing medical coverage, and the maintenance people and the food service people. They come to work every day. They do their job. Keeping people motivated and coming to work is probably the hardest thing, but it's also grateful to see folk coming to work and still have smiles on their faces when you can see their face. But they still have a smile on their face, and they still have a pleasant word to share of encouragement with everyone. So it's a hard day every day, but the payoff is being here with true professionals.
And Colonel, you speak to lawyers, defense attorneys, family members. You mentioned that perhaps some of the inmates are just frustrated, but have you been able to talk to them and reassure them of the safety within the jail, particularly the Union City Jail?
Yes, and that's very important that we're able to do that. Not only myself, but my other senior commanders, the watch commanders at each one of the facilities, get out and around and speak to the inmates, particularly, let them know what we're doing. And not only letting them know what we're doing, but they see what we're doing. They see the contractor coming in. They see that we're moving them around in order to facilitate cleaning the facility. So these are things that they can see action in progress. It's not just my word, but there are things that they can see that we're doing for their safety.
Colonel Mark C. Adger with the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Rose. It was a pleasure.
Take care.